I'm recording.
Yeah, I'm glad to begin it. How's it? There we go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for joining us once again. And John, Lindsay, thank you for setting us up once again. I'm sure you're going to talk more about CARP because you've got the logo there and you've got friendly to seniors and you have so much history with community activities. Today we have Lana Tremblay from Crime Stoppers Sudbury, Rainbow Crime Stoppers. I always find the rainbow because I always wonder what's at the end of the rainbow, but I guess it's Crime Stoppers at the end of the rainbow. And Lana, you're going to tell us a little bit about how people can get involved, what Crime Stoppers can do for community. I know it's not the only Crime Stoppers. They're all over North America, right? We're just one chapter in the and we need to talk about effectiveness as well. My name's Hugh Cruzel and I am the chair of the local chapter of CARP. John Lindsay often steps in. We wear about the same size of shoes, I think, John, so it's easy to take over quite often. I'm delighted that we are doing this series of questions, investigations, dialogues with people across the community. John, you have something else to add?
Well, I think that Crime Stoppers, of course, has been with us for many, many years. Lana can probably give a bit of history there, but Crime Stoppers is an important adjunct to the police to help them in solving crimes that otherwise may not come to the attention of the police themselves. But so many people in the community are aware of what's going on in certain areas, and they can provide these tips. And they can do it anonymously. And there's also a financial reward if the case is resolved. So, a very, very valuable contribution to the community, and also keeping us aware of other dangers, in particular with respect to fraud and misrepresentation and identity theft and all that sort of thing too. And that's where we hope that Lana is going to be able to help us today in some of that explanation.
Yeah. Sure. Well, let's go for it. Tell us all about Crime Stoppers. And importantly, I think, because you are the face of Crime Stoppers, how did you get involved?
If I'm being honest with you, I was doing consulting work from home. I had a consulting firm. And I was thinking maybe that it was a lot of work being a small business owner and that maybe just a regular paycheck would be a better thing. So a friend of mine knew that I was looking for something, and her mother-in-law is Sharon Marinchuk, who is one of the founding board members at Crime Stoppers, has been with the agency since before incorporation. And so she suggested to Sharon that I might be a good candidate, and that's sort of how I wound up at Crime Stoppers. But having said that, I have a long history of working in social service organizations around the area, and it's important to me, very important to me, that I'm doing work that feels meaningful. So Crime Stoppers is an excellent opportunity to sort of do the kind of work that makes you feel like you're making a valuable contribution to your community. So yeah, there are a lot of non-monetary rewards from working at Crime Stoppers. So I'm really pleased to be there. And
well, people are just beginning to join us on this. And, this will be broadcast to the larger world through a variety of platforms. Certainly the CARP Sudbury website. Lana, is there a way people can engage with Crime Stoppers? I mean, is there a telephone number or is there a website? I'm sure there are all those things and Instagram and everything, right?
Right. So I do have a quick presentation.
Yay!
So I will share my screen and we'll go through the presentation, and that should answer most of the questions. So then if you have a question while I'm going through the presentation, please don't hesitate to stop me and ask. But there'll be also an opportunity to answer any of your questions, or I always welcome feedback and love hearing people's comments at the end of these kinds of presentations. So please feel free. Okay, so I'll share my screen now. Sorry. There we go. Okay, everybody can see that?
Perfect.
Okay, so first of all, we'll talk a little bit about the history of Crime Stoppers. So Crime Stoppers was actually founded by a Canadian-born investigator in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So as you alluded to earlier, there are now over 1,700 programs in 32 countries around the world. Right. So that's pretty interesting. So what happened in Albuquerque was a young fella who had taken a shift for one of his friends, I think he was 20, was shot and killed during a gas station robbery. And 6 weeks into the investigation, this individual, Greg Mackley, still had no lead. So he decided that he was going to put up his own cash reward and set up an anonymous tip line to try to get information to solve the crime. So within 24 hours, they had identified the culprit and an arrest was made. Within 1 year, Albuquerque dropped from the third highest city in the US for per capita crime from out of the 20th position. So, that was the birth of Crime Stoppers. So it was recognized that this was an effective way to get new information to solve crimes. So our story here in Sudbury, our mission statement is that we empower people to make their neighborhoods, schools, and businesses safer through the anonymous reporting of crime. So in 1987, two programs were established. One was Sudbury Regional Crime Stoppers, and the other was Rainbow Country Crime Stoppers. In 1992, those two programs amalgamated. So this is why now we have Sudbury Rainbow Crime Stoppers. So we have a very large geographic area that sort of goes north to the watershed, out to Warren, south to Britt, and east towards Manitoulin Island, Elliott Lake. So we do have a very large territory. So there are some myths about Crime Stoppers. When I first started working at Crime Stoppers, or before I started working at Crime Stoppers, I believed these myths myself. So one of the common misconceptions is that Crime Stoppers is part of the police service. So we are not part of the police service. We're a separately, independently incorporated charitable organization. So we're governed by a board of directors comprised of members of the community. And while we do work in partnership with the police services and other law enforcement agencies, we are not actually part of the police service. So that's a big misconception because people sort of think that we're funded by the police, and we don't have any core funding through the police. And while we do apply for and sometimes get grants, we don't have any core ongoing funding from provincial or federal governments. So everything we do is predicated on fundraising. So some of our fundraising challenges that we're facing now is obviously, like everyone, we're subject to the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's really negatively impacted the revenues that we've received from things like charitable gaming. So we're working hard at finding new and innovative ways to fundraise, as I'm sure all other charitable organizations are. Another huge issue that we have in fundraising is that our entire program is predicated on anonymity. So because of that, we're extremely cautious about what kind of information we share. So all we ever share is aggregate stats since inception. We never tell sort of, we can't say a tip solved that arson or that murder because maybe only one person knew the information and we might be exposing the tipster. So having said that, we can't use warm and fuzzy stories that pull on people's heartstrings as a fundraising tool. That makes fundraising a bit of a challenge for us. So another myth that I believed before I started working at Crime Stoppers was, that they're at the police office. They have call display. They know who you are. And now that I work at Crime Stoppers, I realize the supreme importance that's placed on anonymity at Crime Stoppers. We do not have call display. you know, it says anonymous when a caller calls on the phone display. I'll get into, you know, how to give a tip, and all the ways you can give a tip are anonymous, but yeah, anonymity is of key importance for us. So our coordinators, if someone calls Crime Stoppers to give a tip, coordinators are very cautious about sort of not letting them give personal identifying information. And also, if people inadvertently do give identifying information, our coordinators are especially trained to scrub all of that information from the tip. So even something as simple as gender, they refer to tipsters as they, not he, she. So yeah, anonymity is really at what the core of we do. So yeah, we don't want to know who you are, and we will go to great lengths to protect your identity. Online tips are bounced through a series of IP addresses so that they can't be traced. People don't always, anonymity is important because people hesitate to go to the police for a variety of reasons. Here, as indicated here, fear of retaliation, they don't want to go to court, they don't know who to contact. You know, what's really cogent for me working at Crime Stoppers every day is that it's that fear of retaliation piece. Like, it's a very real and visceral fear, because if you know something that's going on, and sometimes the individuals who are engaged in these illegal activities are actually very violent and dangerous individuals. And so this completely alleviates people from having to be concerned about those things at all. You can never be, because we never know who you are, you can never be called to court to testify under any circumstances, because we can't tell them, because we don't collect that information. So it really does alleviate those issues. And the myth busted, no one uses Crime Stoppers. So as you can see from our statistics listed here, people actually do use Crime Stoppers. So some of the situations that these case numbers or these statistics don't take into account are cases where the police have a suspect, and so they're using the information as a corroborating evidence so that they can get a warrant to do an investigation, and the investigation subsequently results in the arrest. Crimes that are solved due to our crime of the weeks or wanted Wednesdays, these are things that we do with the police. So we highlight particular individuals who are wanted in our community, and or we highlight particular crimes that have happened in the community. We advertise these things through the media, and so oftentimes people who know something will just call police directly instead of calling us. So those numbers also don't get collected in these statistics. So another myth busted: if I contact Crime Stoppers, people will call me a rat. This is a concern that we hear an awful lot at Crime Stoppers. You know, first of all, you have to tell someone that you called Crime Stoppers for them to know. We definitely, because of the anonymity factor, they're not going to find out from us. The other question I like to ask people is, who are you protecting? So if there's a perpetrator and a victim in a scenario, you know, is it in the best interest of our community to protect people who are committing crimes and damaging other people? So how it works. Crime Stoppers based on the simple principle that for every crime committed, someone has information that could help law enforcement solve the crime. So a tipster calls or submits an online tip. They receive a confidential tip number. That's how we identify tipsters. That's the only way we identify tipsters. So it's important that when tipsters call in that they hang on to their tip number. If they wanted to call back and give further information or call back to check on the status of a reward, they need to have that tip number because without it, we have no way of identifying them. Yeah. So, once tips are never in themselves evidence that would result in an arrest. What they are is information that police or law enforcement can use to know where to look. It gives them a hint about where to look and where to investigate. But ultimately, all arrests are made based on investigations. Crime Stoppers is not an investigative body. We strictly take the tips and pass it along to investigators. But once investigators do an arrest or make an arrest, our tipsters, if their tip led to that arrest, they can be eligible for up to a $2,000 cash reward, which is also completely 100% anonymous. We have a number of local businesses that we work in collaboration with that a tipster will go to their place of business and approach the customer service desk and say, I'm here to pick up an envelope for ABC 123, and they're handed an envelope of cash and leave. So it's all still 100% anonymous. So that can be useful. So what can you call Crime Stoppers about? So I often hear people say that they thought they could only call Crime Stoppers about a wanted Wednesday or a crime of the week or something we'd advertised, which is not the case. You can call Crime Stoppers about anything, that any crime that is happening, will happen, has happened. That includes things like theft, homicide, human trafficking, drugs, arson, illegal weapons, a whole raft of whatever you can think of, really. If it's illegal, you can call Crime Stoppers about it. We do often intervene in other scenarios as well, and tipsters can still be eligible for a reward, even if there's not an arrest or criminal charges laid. So an example I like to use is bullying in the schools. So we love to get tips about bullying in the schools, but the ideal outcome resolution that everyone's looking for is a resolution that happens in the school between the teachers, the parents, and the students. And so obviously we don't want to be criminalizing youth over bullying. We want bullying to stop. So in that circumstance, someone who gave a tip would still be eligible for a reward. So how to submit a tip? So Facebook. You can go to our Facebook page. This is what it looks like. There's a button there. You can click on the button and submit a tip on Facebook. You can go to our website at www.sudburycrimestoppers.com and submit a tip on our homepage, and you'll see the submit a tip button there. Or you can call us. If you call 705-222-8477 from the local calling area, you'll reach one of the coordinators in our Sudbury office between 8 and 4, Monday to Friday. If you are calling outside of those times, our 1-800 number goes to a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week call center and is answered by trained coordinators who will take your tip as well. So tips for tipsters. Call or submit your tip from a private location. Don't tell anyone that you submitted a tip to Crime Stoppers. It's we go to great lengths to protect your anonymity, and we believe that it's a really good idea if you call Crime Stoppers to just keep it mum and not tell anyone about it. Sometimes people try to call our office number, our administration office number. You'll get redirected to the tip line if you do. You shouldn't submit tips on Facebook, like go on our Facebook page and comment and try to submit a tip that way. Know your tip number, because that's the only way you can sort of go back to look at your tip and see if you're eligible for a reward or provide further information. So we talked about this. If your tip results in a resolution, you could be eligible for a $2,000 completely anonymous cash reward. So how you can get involved? First, you can provide a tip. Secondly, you can volunteer. All of the work that we do at Crime Stoppers, all of our fundraising that pays for all of the tips and the operations of the program, you know, events, etc., is all made possible by the contributions of our volunteers. All of the charitable fundraising that we do, all made possible by volunteers. So we encourage anyone who's interested to please go to our website, and there is an application for volunteers and for board members. And then the other way you can get involved is by donating to Crime Stoppers. And also you can, you know, patronize some of the organizations that provide charitable gaming funds to Crime Stoppers, like Delta Bingo. Anyone have questions?
Well, that's very comprehensive, Lana. I'm just wondering, when you talk about donations, would that be a charitable donation as such?
Yes, yes. We have a charitable organization number, and so all of our charitable donations are appropriately received.
Mhm. If you suspect someone who is operating a fraud somehow, or is trying to con people out of money, and that individual is known, or the organization is known, would that be something that someone could submit a tip on?
Absolutely, absolutely. Insurance fraud, tax fraud, identity theft. Like, if you can think of it and it seems criminal, then we will likely take a tip about it.
I know on that illustration there, it seems like there's a lot of areas where people might be concerned and willing to put in a tip. I saw something there about begging and also about finance. Could you elaborate on those two areas?
Well, you know, we definitely want to take tips from people that will contribute to public safety in our community. So, like finance, for example, one of the things that you know, we sometimes get calls about would be elder abuse, and oftentimes that's financial in nature. You know, so I mean, there is such a thing as economic abuse, unfortunately, in our culture, and you know, people do get taken advantage of. So that would be the reference to financials. You know, also fraud, telephone fraud, internet fraud. We get a lot of calls about all of those types of things. So, you know, some of the fraud, for example, you get a call from someone who says they're calling from CRA and they want your social insurance number, and you're going to jail if you don't pay them. Like, those frauds oftentimes are perpetrated by people who are international. So they might be calling from some other country halfway around the world. So it's difficult for local police to address those types of fraud. And they typically would direct someone to report it at RCMP's fraud website. But if it's in relation to something that's going on in our community, then we are absolutely 100% interested. And you know, the feedback we get from officers is oftentimes we'll get a tip, and it will have not been on their field of vision in any way, shape, or form. Like, it's something they had no idea was going on at all until someone called in and gave a tip, right? So you know, that's really important. So you know, in the picture it said begging, you said.
I-
So, you know, people have the right to ask other people for money, and so that's their right, up to the degree that, you know, they're not making people afraid.
Well, many of our members have expressed to me over time the fact that they are driving, they are older, there's many distractions on the road. having to watch the signals, traffic around them. But at Brady Street, now at the Kingsway, now at the Four Corners, now even at the liquor store on Long Lake Road, they've got the additional thing of people actually coming out and knocking on their windows.
Yeah.
Coming with signs at them, and they're finding this additionally distracting. I know this is maybe beyond, but I will go there. Your little word puzzle was incredibly fascinating to me, because there are things on there, and I think that's where John was going too, that I hadn't even thought about as being crime related, but many of them are, or
Yeah.
we just know about it. We don't think about it, right, John?
Yeah.
That's true. I know we only have a couple of minutes left, but I just wanted to cover one other area. Sometimes we have at this time of year, people going door to door and suggesting, okay, we're going to replace your driveway or your windows or whatever. And
Or
all
your
we need
roof.
is a deposit of half the price or something like that. And then you never see them again.
Yeah.
Should seniors be somewhat aware of that sort of situation?
Absolutely. I would suggest that, first of all, before I gave anyone any money, I would check with the Sudbury Builders Association
If they're
and
a member.
see if they're members and if they're sort of accredited by the Builders Association. I would also suggest that you would never give anyone any money without a well-written contract, and to ensure that that contract that you understand what's in the contract, and that if need be you have it looked at by someone else to ensure that it's that your expectations will be
Right.
are well articulated in the contract,
For sure.
so
Well,
that you have a leg to stand in.
we only have a few minutes left now. Can you sort of summarize? Now, we can't, there's a lot of other questions I imagine that people
My goodness.
would have. So are you able to answer general questions like the ones that we've been presenting now? Is there a line without really running into the actual making a tip? Is there other areas? Is there a spot where we can just get general information from you?
So certainly you can always call our offices at the Greater Sudbury Police Station at 705-675-9171 extension 5692. I can give general information from that line. There's the website, there's Facebook. We have a pretty established social media presence. So you can check out a lot of information there. And if you call the tip line, when in doubt, call the tip line. Our coordinators will take your tip and an investigator will determine whether or not it's, relevant to crime. So when in doubt, give us a call. It really, there are a lot of crimes that get solved in Sudbury and in other areas where there are Crime Stoppers, that would not otherwise have ever been solved. And then the other thing that really makes a difference is if they're getting tips about a crime, let's say crime of the week, and it gets solved in a week instead of 2 months, all of those man hours and all of the resources that go into solving those crimes are, reduced to almost, to only a portion of the resources. So, in a very real way, that's money in the pockets of every Sudburian. And those are our tax dollars that pay for those services. And so it benefits us all. I think the most important thing is, for me, is that I have a strong sense that I'm contributing to public safety in our community. One of the things I didn't mention is we are engaged as well in some pretty significant public awareness activities. So we're working on a multimedia video campaign that will address youth opioid awareness in our community, which is a huge issue. We're working on an illegal dumping campaign that will be coming out in the next little bit, trying to identify the scope and scale of the illegal dumping problem in our territory, and to put up some signage around the illegal dumping hotspots, letting people know where they can report illegal dumping as a crime. So we're really working towards trying to do some subject matter based, that public awareness campaigns that give people real tools that they can use in the real world. So
Fantastic. Well, I guess that's about it. Hugh, would you like to thank Lana, and we can sign off for this episode?
Definitely. So much we don't know, so much we about or consider until maybe we have to. But I just did a story on the grotto at the the Grotto of Lourdes on Lawrence Street, just off
Yep.
Lawrence Street. The damages that were done there, the individual were never captured yet, were never, I use the word capture, I shouldn't use that word, but identified. And, they've done that. What will they do other things? I think what we're trying to do with Crime Stoppers too is stop future crime, stop people
absolutely.
doing more bad things across our community, hurting more people, damaging more of our public spaces in this particular case. Anyways, Lana, I want to thank you very much for being our guest today and sharing with us the possibilities of another route to solving crime. And you're absolutely right. Man, woman hours, the amount of investment to solve something is terrible. And if we can short circuit that, yeah, please. We're all citizens of this community and other communities. If you see something going on or suspect something, you want to talk to Lana and her colleagues. Thanks, Lana. Thanks, John,
Thank
for
you.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
appreciated.
guys.
Yeah,
You're
bye for now.
welcome. Yeah, you're still on record. Are you off now? There we go. One moment. Lana, thank you so much, truly. And John,
Sure.
set up, it's a wonderful, wonderful possibility here. And I don't know how many people take advantage of it. A lot of citizens do the following. Oh, I really don't want to get involved. It's my neighbor, it's my neighbor's kid. Uh, you know, hopefully
Yeah.
they'll never again.
The rat thing factors in there. I don't want to be. So, we see interesting trends. Like, one of the areas that I've been working on really hard in the last couple of years since I've been with Crime Stoppers is to sort of forge relationship with communities within our very large territory that are not the city of Greater Sudbury. While I'm still doing the work in Sudbury, all of the work we were doing was focused strictly on Sudbury for a long time. And so we've been trying to stretch out into other communities. So, like, for example, the Manitoulin Island. So, being able to give an anonymous tip becomes very important there because communities are very small. Everyone knows everyone. Like, everyone's
Must have been
related to
Lana. She's the one
everyone.
who sees. Yes.
You
Lana's
know,
looking out her front window all the time. Yeah, definitely.
yeah. So, so I mean, we see different things come from different types of things come from different communities, right? So in larger communities where everyone doesn't know everyone and they're not paying really attention to each other, we get different kinds of calls, right?
Mm.
I
Yeah,
think we only got a
Well, it's
minute here.
fascinating.
Yeah, I think we only got a minute before we get cut off here. So Lana, you're going to send me the MP4 file?
I will as soon as I figure out how.
Well, it should be,
We're all learning.
yeah, it's there. If you go to the meeting thing, it will show the ones that have been recorded. Then you just copy it and paste it and send it off to me in my email.
Perfect.
Well,
I will forward that along.
truly, on behalf of the members of CARP, just another thing to put in our collection of knowledge about how to make community work better, how to
Mhm.
place for those perhaps who are not aware of the evil that is out there. That's an extreme word, but whether it's fraud or whether it's your neighbor's kid who says to you, lend me a couple of $100 and you'll never see it again.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, I think that's my own kids that used to ask that.
You'll see
Somebody
it
told me
again.
yesterday, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems.
Ah,
That's a good one.
got it. Got it.
Okay,
Anyway,
well, thank
so
you so much for the opportunity, guys. I
yeah,
really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, just send that file along to me, then I'll put it up and then I'll tell you where it is and we'll take it from there.
Thanks
I'm
so
going to say
much.
goodbye. Thank
Okay.
you. Thanks,
Yeah.
John. Thanks, Lana.
Bye for now. So,
And John, thanks for everything.
so Hugh just disappeared. He's off
Yeah.
to visit another restaurant or something. I don't know if you've noticed, he writes up these stories about restaurants around town.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
appears in the Sudbury Star, or Northern Life, or whatever.
Cool.
And I think he just wants free food, actually, but I say that now.
Well, I bet you he gets the best of service when he rolls into a
Yeah,
restaurant.
he has to sample, right? I'm here, right? You want a good story or not, right?
Well, I'm sure they all sit up and take notice when he arrives.
Yeah, so that's it. I guess that I remember that Debbie Russo worked at Crime Stoppers for a while.
Yes.
And for a number of years, I guess.
Yes, yeah,
And
like over a decade.
Yeah. She worked for, as our Friendly to Seniors, she worked for that group for a number of years too, as well.
Right.
Got us going, and so I don't know where she is now. Is she?
Northern Communications.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, working for John Whitehead.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Northern Communications. So she seems to like it. She's dealing with the Crime Stoppers tip lines.
Is that right? Oh, great.
Yeah, but they have the contract for, I think it's the Crime Stoppers tip lines in the States.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't realized the charity thing, so I'm going to be able to put you on my charity list this year.
Oh yeah.
Sounds good. Okay.
Yeah, that would be great.
So the number's on the website, huh?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, okay, great.
So you can, click to donate on the website as well. So
yeah, well, as long as I have the number, because I do it through a little charity organization I have. So I give the money to them and they give it to the charity. They just need the number. So I'll do
I
it
can
that way.
absolutely provide that to you 100%. Yeah, that would be
good.
very, very greatly appreciated.
Hey,
because like everybody else, we're